Chapter 1.
Years ago, there lived in a small village a 13-year-old boy whose name was Nit. He was so humble, good at heart, and of helpful nature. Unfortunately, he was orphaned and was living with his Uncle Ben, and Nit was raised by him only, since the latter was still very young. Let me tell you something even more interesting about Nit. He was a very hard-working guy for his young age and was fond of growing some vegetables and fruits in their garden. It was Uncle Ben who would do farming for business, and the young boy would always help him, while also tackling the household chores and taking care of the house in absence of his uncle. One day, while walking to the mountain foot located behind his house, where his small garden was found, a sudden change in the weather occurred. The sky became so dark mystically. Wind was blowing like a whistle, birds screaming and flying like mad as if they were running for their lives, and it even started raining heavily, unexpectedly, along with the striking of thunder and lightning. He was amazed by this sudden change, and scared too, as no such thing had ever happened before. It felt like a storm to him, but was weird too. He lifted his head up, trying to take a look at the sky, and could simply see a black monster-shaped form, which kept approaching him, slowly, and this made his heart beat fast. Suddenly there was a flash, which almost made him go blind. For a minute, he could finally muster courage to run away from there and reach home, but was still in a state of shock and breathing fast. He closed the door, grabbed a chair, and sat on it. He started pondering over what actually happened, and said, "Am I dreaming?" He even pinched himself to confirm if whatever he just saw was true or simply an illusion, and he yelled, "Ouch! This is not a dream." He looked outside the window to find his neighbors in a rush, taking their precautions, while shouting it might be the sign of a storm or something. One of the neighbors even shouted, "Everybody, go inside. That's a storm for sure." Not to forget that the weather kept getting worse. Nit was home alone as Uncle Ben had gone to town for some work and would return home the next day. Nit was only sitting and thinking that something came to his mind. Like a flash, he murmured something and then shouted, "OMG, it's September 13th, 2022, today, and it's happening similar to what the old monk had predicted when I was 7 years old. Today is the D-Day, when something miraculous had to happen in Nit's life, which would change his life completely." Now he started remembering each and every word the old monk had told him in the past, which is actually happening right now in front of his eyes. Shocked, his mouth opened. Nit opened the door and went outside in the bad weather, completely drenched. He ran towards the mountain foot. Once again, the young boy was missing by now, and no sign of him. So, what actually happened that day? Where is Nit right now?
Chapter 2.
There was still chaos in the village until everybody had not entered their respective houses. Weather was getting worse, and then it was nightfall. Surprisingly, everything returned back to normal once everyone fell asleep. The next day, early morning, Uncle Ben was returning from town, whistling and walking down the street, eager to meet his nephew. He found it a little weird to find no one in the surroundings, especially the drunkard Johnny, who was always around. So he kept wondering while he kept moving. Back home, Uncle Ben found the door was not locked and kept banging. He shouted, "Nit, my boy, Uncle is back. Where are you?" He entered the house and kept looking for him, saying, "Look what I've brought for you, your favorite cuppy cake. Come out, my boy." But no answer. Hearing him calling his nephew's name repeatedly, the closest neighbor came out and asked out of curiosity what was the matter, and without any delay, related to Uncle Ben of whatever happened in his absence. Now he started getting worried and asked, "Have you seen my nephew?" The neighbors said everyone was in such a rush that no one even noticed Nit. In the chaos, by now every inhabitant of the village had gathered in front of Uncle Ben's house and the street, people murmuring, "Hope he is not in a trouble." We should look for him. Where must be the poor boy? Finally came the drunkard, who was still intoxicated and not able to stand on his feet properly. But he was the key person in this situation, and in a louder voice he said, "The boy, I saw him going towards the mountain feet. I saw him." And he stumbled to find himself unconscious on the ground. Uncle Ben and a few of the neighbors immediately rushed towards the mountain foot, whereas others handled the drunkard, but in vain. They could not find Nit, so they decided to take the help of the local police. After having lodged the complaint and leaving a picture of the missing, police took the case in his hand. Days after days, there was still no news about him. Uncle Ben was left alone, always crying for his nephew and missing him. Nothing was the same for him now, but he had to work for his living, so little by little he went back to normal, yet always going to the police station to inquire about Nit.
Chapter 3.
New location, far away in a luxurious island and very big palace. A paralyzed young rich boy could be found sleeping in his bed. What was shocking is that his face was identical to Nit. He could not move from bed, but could talk like a normal person. Though the face was the same, there was a big difference between Nit and him. He had an attitude problem, was so arrogant, and was also very bad-mannered. The name was Rock, the rich spoiled brat, and he is said to be affected by paralysis from birth. Who was the look-alike of Nit? Was he related to him? And this forms the rest of the story. Meanwhile, the search for Nit is still on. Let's learn more about Rock, the new character which has left many of you astonished. Rock was the unique child of the business tycoon, Mr. Anderson, and mother, Madeline, who was in the profession of modeling. So, the prince grew up without the love and affection of his parents. Rock had no friends because of his disability and would always feel lonely and frustrated, which he would vent on the servants and those in his surroundings. It was time for celebration. The citizens of the beautiful island, and also guests from other countries, were here for the 13th wedding anniversary of Rock's parents, and there was a lavish party where the palace was decorated in the honor of Mr. Anderson and his lovable wife. The mood was completely festive with soft music playing on the go, different groups of people gossiping and discussing various topics. Some were enjoying their drinks at the bar, while children who were accompanied by their parents were playing among their peers. The party was lively and joyful. All of a sudden, lights went off and left everyone surprised, murmuring, "Oh, the lights!" And then the projector turned on, and the big screen was in front of everyone. And then there was a voice announcing on the mic,
"Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are here on the occasion of the wedding anniversary of the most respected business tycoon, Mr. Anderson, and his beautiful wife, Mrs. Madeline. So let's begin the party with some memories of the family."
Then one by one kept displaying a slideshow of old pictures. As soon as the picture of Rock appeared on the screen, it went blackout due to the failure of the projector, which had a short circuit and caught fire. Everybody got scared and started screaming, "Oh God, there is fire!" And then there was a flash on the big screen which made everyone stand steady. The image on the screen was a bit buzzing and blurry, and then in a robotic voice, they could hear,
"Hey, Mom and Dad, I'm back home."
Then it appeared so clearly, the picture of Rock, and the screen turned off again. Confused, everyone shouted, "Who is he?"
"That can't be Rock. But he looks the same. Look, he's so different."
And then, lights went on. Everything was back to normal, and surprise! There came the Prince Rock. Yes, he kept climbing down the stairs on his own to the party. His favorite music was playing loud, which turned the atmosphere in a different mood. He was dressed up like a dashing hero, and his style mesmerized all the young girls of his age present in the party. They started cheering for him.
"Rock, Rock, Rock."
He kept walking like nothing had ever happened to him. His parents were so glad to see him like that, and without wasting their time, they hugged him and started showing love to him. Rock got so furious and pushed them away from him and picked up the knife found on the table nearby him. He was about to stab it in the stomach of his parents when there was a new twist in the story.
Chapter 4.
The old monk made his entry in the party and yelled,
"Stop, Rock."
The latter persisted in his action. Again shouted the old monk,
"I said stop it, Nit. They are your parents and you have to respect them."
Rock stared at him out of shock. He then heeded to the monk and dropped the knife on the carpet. Confused, Rock asked him,
Who is Nit? Why did you call me by this name? Don't you know my name is Rock?
He stared at the monk with anger and was about to leave from there when Nit walked into the party, in person himself. Flashback. The Nit you see in front of you is neither dead nor alive. Thus, it was important to go into the past to understand the theory and the actual situation. The old monk asked everyone present in the party to keep calm and to take a seat. More chairs were also requested to make sure that everyone had a place to sit because the storytelling was going to be long. So, once they all were seated, the monk began with the story. Nit, who lived in a village with his uncle Ben, like you all already knew about, but there was something which was mystic about Nit till now is that the young boy was not for real. To be more precise, he was just an illusion to the eyes, even though he could be seen talking to you, laughing, crying, or moving. But no one ever realized the truth about the boy. The old monk continued, I had in Nit's childhood predicted that on the September 13th, 2022, there will be a sudden change in weather, a black monster shape form in the sky, and then a flash, which would completely change his life, and this is exactly what happened on that day. The flash that had happened when Nit had left the house again was the click of the magical moment. In fact, this was the same magical moment when Nit had disappeared, and instantly Rock was bestowed with the power to walk but was unaware. The day of the wedding anniversary, the second flash which happened in the party, finally shook Rock on his bed, and he woke up and stood on his feet. Moreover, he was even bestowed with supernatural power, and he was ignorant.
Who is Nit, then?
Well, Nit is an energy, or let's say magical or supernatural power, or maybe a mystic soul.
Now we are talking.
Chapter 5.
It concerns the past life of Rock and Nit, who were twin brothers for real. They were Siamese twins, both connected to each other with one heart. The twins' father, Mr. Johnson, was a famous scientist, and Mother Jenny, a school teacher. Johnson had a stepbrother who has been reborn as Uncle Ben in present. He had a crush on his stepbrother's wife Jenny before marriage, but could never tell her about his feelings and was left alone forever. So, he would play with the kids and stay close to Jenny, which pleased his heart. But Ben never had any bad intentions for her sister-in-law, even though he loved her a lot. One day, Ben was playing with the kids and he wanted to relieve the burden on his heart, which he did by revealing the secret hidden in his heart to the children, who were not big enough to understand anything. But unfortunately, Johnson, who was passing by, heard everything and was left dumb. He walked away in a state of shock, or maybe guilt, not able to understand what to say or what to do. He went towards the riverbank. This is the place Johnson goes to whenever he's sad or needs to think. He was talking to himself.
Have I wronged my brother? I snatched his love. How could I?
He sat for a few hours there and returned home. He wanted to reveal everything to his wife, and then thought that it was better not to say anything to her. Years went by, the twins grew up, and were now 13 years old. Ben was no more in this world. He died in an accident. They were mourning his death when a little boy walked into the house crying.
No, Dad. Why did you leave me alone? How I'm gonna live now? I have no one in this world, and no place to stay.
Everyone was surprised, and Johnson stood up and walked to the boy and asked,
Who are you, and why are you calling my brother Ben your father?
The little boy replied,
Uncle, he was my father. My name is Cyrus and I am the son of Ben and Jenny.
Jenny was like,
What? Do you even know what you're talking about? You bad-mannered boy? How dare you talk like that? About me? I'm not your mother.
There was complete silence in the hall, and then Johnson said to Cyrus,
You will stay here in this house until the truth is out.
Jenny was still not so convinced, yet agreed to his husband's decision and left from there. Cyrus was shown his room by the servants.
A few moments later,
Everyone left and Johnson decided to talk to Cyrus, so they both met in the lab of the house, where Johnson would do his experiments when at home. During his free time, the boy laughed because he knew the reason behind him being summoned in the lab, yet he asked,
You don't trust me, Dad? Why are you so surprised? I'm your son and not to Ben. I lied to you because everyone was there. I know everything. The twins are the result of your experiment which went wrong, and I'm your real son.
Johnson, who was shocked and speechless, begged Cyrus to keep his mouth shut.
Chapter 6.
The next day, the twins were playing outside in the yard with the servants' children and those of the neighbors when suddenly the ball broke the window pane of the storeroom of the house. The ball went inside, and as Johnson was quite a strict man, no one dared to enter the storeroom. So, finally, the twins decided to get the ball back. It was the first time they were going in there, and it was quite spooky. They got scared, and at once pigeons flew from their heads to the door and then outside the storeroom. The twins screamed so loud that the other children went in too. Unfortunately, Cyrus was not there with them, else he might have spilled the beans to Johnson. They all now started looking for the ball in the dark, and finally there was a little hole in the wall which let light pass through, and the ball was visible on a box, which was quite mysterious. The children didn't bother about that box, instead took the ball and went outside happily. But the twins delayed there, and were curious to know what was in the box, as they doubted, having seen some pictures which in a hurry to go outside with others could not figure out well. Anyways, they decided to continue their outdoor game. The day after, early in the morning, when no one was at home, the twins decided to go to the storeroom and find out what was in the box. They walked in slowly and opened the box.
Is it?
They murmured to each other, so what could be in the box? Which left the twins amazed. The box was full of surprises. Pictures of the family were found, Johnson holding little Cyrus in his arms. There were also the pictures when the latter was grown up, which made it easier for the twins to recognize Cyrus. On searching furthermore, few diaries were also found, in which many secrets were revealed about the family and also of the existence of the twins. So they opened each one and started reading them. Johnson, who is the biggest scientist ever and doing research on humans and their hidden qualities or supernatural power, had come across a unique and miraculous man whose name was Lucifer. Lucifer was not ordinary, but had the power to fly objects in the air, and was also the student of the great monk Jinsei. Thus, one day Johnson decided to bring Lucifer to his lab and perform some tests on him to find out all he had within him and the powers he possessed. Indeed, Lucifer was an extraordinary person. Johnson, who was of wicked mind, got an idea and made his decision to create a test tube baby with the qualities of Lucifer, and alongside the genes of himself. Kim, the secretary, had also been made part of the plan.
Chapter 7.
9 months passed by, and it was finally the time for delivery. Johnson was not aware that her wife Jenny was also pregnant, despite having medical issues, which prevented her from bearing a baby for so many years. He got in a dilemma, as he needed to keep the experimental baby in his house, and then he got an idea to exchange them. Iris was born first, and then came the Siamese twins. Jenny was unconscious, so Johnson took advantage of it and exchanged the babies. He even killed Lucifer and Kim, who knew his secret already. Cyrus was sent far away, to some unknown place to be raised. When Jenny gained consciousness, she found the twins next to her, and was so glad to have them by her side. She kissed them on the forehead and hugged them tight. Years went by and the twins were grown up, and no one had any idea where Cyrus had been sent, and it was also not mentioned in the diaries.
Oops!
Suddenly, all the doors of the storeroom got locked, and the twins could hear the footsteps of someone coming slowly, and then in a robotic voice, they could hear,
You bloody fools! How the hell did you enter this place? Don't you know it is forbidden here?
Both of them started sweating and shaking out of fear. To their surprise, it was Johnson, who simply appeared in front of them and caught them red-handed, reading the diaries, and he already knew the twins must have learned about everything by now. Johnson.
What are you both doing here?
The twins.
Nothing.
Johnson.
Oh. Cut the crap. I know you must have read all the diaries and know every secret of mine by now.
The twins.
Well, we do. How can you be so cruel, Mr. Johnson?
Johnson.
That's none of your business. You will have to die now, as you already know my secret.
Johnson even revealed that the death of Ben was not an accident, but was killed for being the secret ex-lover of Jenny, and this would make Johnson go mad each time he would see Ben in front of him, ever since his truth was out.
Chapter 8.
It was the September 13th, 1922, 100 years back. Johnson had killed the twins without wasting time, as they had already known the truth. No one knew what happened after that and where the family went.
Game over.
The end of storytelling by the old monk.
Let's get back to the party.
Everybody were so surprised and still pondering over the story told by the old monk. Then the old monk told everyone that each and every character was reborn from the past life. The only character which had not made its appearance yet was
Cyrus.
And even in past life, no one apart from Johnson knew about his whereabouts. In fact, the old monk is one of the grandchildren from the same lineage of the monk Jinsei, whom Lucifer knew 100 years back. He knew everything except about Cyrus, who was a mystery for everyone.
Stay tuned, not the end. Coming soon.